You've probably been told that if a woman isn't interested, you should just give up, move on, or try harder to prove yourself. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Women don't miss men because they need them. They miss men because those men know how to create a powerful emotional presence, even in their absence. This video isn't about cheesy tricks or fake pickup lines. It's about understanding female psychology on a deeper level, and how you can subtly position yourself so that even a woman who wasn't interested at first finds herself thinking about you when you're not around. Sounds impossible, right? But it's not. The truth is, indifference is not permanent. It's a reaction. And if you know how to flip that reaction, you can completely shift how a woman perceives you. Now, before you roll your eyes, understand this. Making a woman miss you isn't about chasing, begging, or proving your worth. In fact, those are the fastest ways to kill attraction. Women don't respect men who try too hard. I've heard that same line all my life. If she's not into you, let her go. But through years of observation, I've discovered something no one dares to say out loud. Female disinterest is not a verdict, it's a reflection. It's an emotional response shaped by how you project your energy, your mystery, and your inner power. It's not about insisting. It's about transforming the perception she has of you without saying a single word. Because when you understand the psychology behind desire, you realize attraction isn't luck, it's strategy. My name is Melkor Huamán, specialist in persuasion, manipulation, and dark psychology. I've dedicated years to studying the invisible patterns that govern the human mind, especially when it comes to desire and emotional influence. Not from fantasy, but from science, history, and observation. I've studied the works of Robert B. Cialdini, master of influence, Dale Carnegie, architect of human connection, Edward Bernays, father of public manipulation, and of course Niccolò Machiavelli, who understood that power is never requested, it's exercised. I've also drawn from Sun Tzu, who taught that every battle is won before it begins, because relationships like war are not fought in the physical realm. They are won in the psychological one. Most men believe attraction is about luck, looks, or money. But that's an illusion sold by a world that doesn't understand masculine presence. Women don't remember the men who are always available. They remember the ones who master silence, distance, and emotional tension. Attraction doesn't grow from constant attention. It grows from balance, from contrast, from the subtle rhythm between presence and absence. It's a dance between what is revealed and what is withheld. Robert Greene explains it perfectly. Power belongs to the one who controls attention. When a man desperately seeks to be noticed, he hands over his power. But when he masters his need for validation, when he becomes comfortable in solitude, when he radiates quiet confidence, he becomes an enigma. And mystery in female psychology is one of the strongest triggers of attraction. What cannot be understood is desired. What cannot be possessed is imagined. And imagination is the soil where desire multiplies. We live in an age where speed has killed patience. Everyone wants instant connections, instant validation, instant love. But attraction doesn't respond to speed. It responds to tension. Women are not drawn to the men who entertain them. They are drawn to those who unsettle them emotionally, those who make them question, wonder, and overthink. The man who doesn't rush, who can hold his silence, becomes a mirror where her emotions echo back to her. Because when there's no urgency, there's control. And control creates respect, curiosity, and ultimately desire. Philip Zimbardo once said that environment defines behavior. He was right. But in relationships, you are the environment. Your energy, your tone, the way you walk, look, and speak, all of it builds the emotional atmosphere where she decides whether to trust you, desire you, or forget you. Most men react to rejection with anxiety or frustration. The few who understand dark psychology see every reaction as data. They don't take it personally. They don't justify themselves. They observe. They adapt. They trigger emotion intentionally, not through cruelty but through intelligence and control. Attraction isn't about making her need you. It's about creating emotional experiences that her mind associates with you. Words mean little if your presence doesn't match them. The female mind doesn't fall in love with what it sees. It falls in love with what it feels when you're near and when you're gone. If you can make her think of you even in your absence, you've activated one of the deepest psychological mechanisms of human desire: longing. Don't misunderstand me. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding emotions. Machiavelli said a man must learn to be both lion and fox, powerful yet strategic. The same applies to attraction. Being desired is not a gift. It's perception. And perception can be shaped. Just as Bernays shaped public opinion through the subconscious, you can shape emotional perception through presence. Throughout this video, I'll show you how applying dark psychology ethically can transform the way you relate to women and to yourself. Because true seduction isn't in the words you say, but in the energy you project, in the way your absence still feels like presence, in how your silence makes her think. Desire is not magic, it's mastery. And when you master yourself, you become unforgettable. To understand attraction, you must first understand the architecture of the female mind. Women are not drawn to logic. They are drawn to emotion, rhythm, and polarity. Their attraction mechanism is not linear. It is responsive. It reacts to energy, confidence, and unpredictability. When a man acts in predictable patterns, constant messaging, validation, or emotional exposure, he becomes noise. The human brain, especially the female brain, filters noise. It's wired to crave contrast, tension, ambiguity, surprise. Those are the emotional colors of desire. What most men fail to grasp is that attraction is built not in her conscious mind, but in her subconscious. The conscious mind judges, compares, and analyzes. The subconscious feels. And it's this deeper layer that dark psychology speaks to. The realm of emotion before reason, reaction before understanding. Every word you say, every silence you hold, every micro-expression you display communicates to that layer. You're either stimulating curiosity or killing it. Paul Ekman, the world's leading expert on facial expressions, demonstrated that micro-emotions reveal more truth than words ever could. A fleeting look of confidence, a slow blink of detachment, a pause before answering. These subtleties build presence. The female subconscious reads these signals with incredible precision. That's why confidence can't be faked. The body always betrays the mind. When you act needy, your tone tightens. When you're desperate, your posture collapses. But when you're grounded, when you know you are the prize, your very stillness becomes magnetic. Many men chase women because they fear being forgotten. But the paradox is this: the more you chase, the faster you vanish from her emotional memory. The human mind assigns value through scarcity. Cialdini called it one of the core laws of influence. What is always available becomes invisible. What withdraws becomes valuable. It's the same mechanism that makes a limited edition product irresistible, not because it's superior, but because it's rare. When you pull back, when you control your attention, you create emotional scarcity. And emotional scarcity creates obsession. But this doesn't mean ignoring her. Indifference without awareness is weakness disguised as confidence. The difference lies in intent. When you understand why you withdraw, when your silence has purpose, it becomes powerful. A man who knows when to step forward and when to retreat operates on a psychological frequency that women instinctively respond to. It's not manipulation, it's calibration. You're reading the energy and adjusting your presence to amplify attraction, not suffocate it. Kevin Dutton, author of The Wisdom of Psychopaths, explains that some individuals naturally possess traits that make them more magnetic. Emotional control, focus under pressure, and social boldness. These traits, when refined ethically, create what I call the aura of calm dominance. It's not about intimidation, it's about certainty. Women feel safest and most attracted around a man who doesn't flinch, doesn't overreact, and doesn't explain himself. His energy says, "I understand my value," and that certainty becomes a gravitational field. Let me give you a real example. Years ago, I coached a man who was obsessed with winning back a woman who had lost interest. He texted daily, complimented her, tried to be funny, and she grew colder. When I told him to stop all communication for 10 days, he resisted. He thought distance meant defeat. But when he finally did it, something strange happened. On the 7th day, she reached out. Not because she missed his messages, but because she felt the shift in energy. His silence changed the dynamic, the power balance inverted. That's the law of emotional contrast in action. When you stop chasing, you become the void her mind tries to fill. Sun Tzu taught, appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. The same principle governs attraction. Sometimes showing restraint is a display of immense power. By not reacting, you force her to. By holding space, you invite pursuit. Every psychological game has this invisible seesaw. The one who controls attention controls the outcome. You cannot demand attraction. You can only position yourself so that her mind builds it for you. Let's analyze the common toxic pattern men fall into, what I call the cycle of overexposure. It begins with interest, followed by effort, followed by expectation. When the expectation isn't met, frustration arises, which leads to overcompensation. That overcompensation manifests as more messages, more affection, more attempts to prove worth. What happens next? Her attraction drops, not because you're less valuable, but because you became predictable. The mind gets addicted to uncertainty. Predictability equals safety, and safety kills seduction. The antidote to this is controlled unpredictability. You don't have to be mysterious by faking your life. You must simply stop being transparent about everything. Keep parts of your routine private. Don't announce your intentions. Surprise her occasionally with silence, not sarcasm. Let her wonder, what is he thinking? That question is the seed of attraction, because when a woman wonders, she invests attention, and attention is the currency of desire. Robert Hare, who developed the concept of the psychopathy checklist, found that charm and composure often coexist in those who exert strong emotional influence. But this doesn't mean you become manipulative or cold. It means you learn to harness the calm energy that unsettles others, just enough to trigger curiosity. Think of it as emotional chess. Each move is calculated, not forced. Each silence carries weight. Each word has timing. That's how influence works. Not through noise, but through nuance. Now let's talk about energy. Every interaction has an emotional frequency. When you enter a room anxious, people feel it. When you enter calm, grounded, confident, they align to your vibration. B.F. Skinner proved through behavioral psychology that responses can be conditioned by reinforcement. In relationships, your reactions teach her how to perceive you. If you reward her indifference with attention, you condition her to devalue you. But if you reward her curiosity with presence, you condition her to chase. The principle is the same. Reward behavior that aligns with your value. Toxic people, both men and women, exploit this principle unconsciously. They give intermittent reinforcement, attention then withdrawal, warmth then coldness. This pattern creates what psychologists call a trauma bond. It's powerful because it links pleasure and pain. But when you understand it, you can use the same dynamic ethically. Instead of manipulation, you use controlled mystery. Instead of games, you use boundaries. You let your presence be felt without being consumed by the need for approval. That is true power, influence without pressure. In dark psychology, this balance is sacred. You must never use it to harm. You use it to elevate your emotional intelligence, to stop being reactive, and to start being intentional. When you become aware of your own patterns, you start noticing hers. You'll see the shifts in tone, the pauses, the emotional microsignals that tell you what's truly happening beneath the surface. You'll stop guessing and start reading. Because here's the ultimate truth: attraction is a psychological mirror. She doesn't respond to who you are. She responds to how you make her feel about herself when she's around you. That's why the most magnetic men are not the most handsome or wealthy. They're the ones who can awaken dormant emotions. They remind her of something she forgot she could feel. And once you learn to do that with awareness, you'll never need to chase again. Now that you understand the invisible mechanics of attraction, it's time to apply them. Knowledge without embodiment is useless. You can read every book on persuasion, every theory on psychology, but if your energy contradicts your words, nothing changes. Women feel energy before they interpret logic. They respond to presence, not performance. The essence of power lies not in what you say, but in what you radiate when you say nothing at all. The first transformation begins with emotional regulation. Most men live enslaved to reaction. They respond instantly to messages. They interpret silence as rejection, and they treat emotional distance as a personal failure. But emotional control is the foundation of dominance. When you master your inner world, you automatically project certainty. Daniel Kahneman proved that the human mind makes most decisions through emotion, then justifies them with logic. So when you maintain calm during chaos, you become the emotional anchor in her storm, and the subconscious always gravitates towards stability. Here's a practice I teach. When she withdraws, don't chase, breathe. Feel the impulse to reach out, and instead, center yourself in silence. That pause rewires your mind. You're teaching your nervous system that absence doesn't equal loss. You're reversing years of emotional conditioning. The next time she sends a short reply, observe it without labeling it. Don't interpret, analyze. Her silence is information, not an attack. You'll notice something powerful. The less reactive you are, the more she becomes curious again. Because unpredictability triggers attention, and calmness amplifies it. The second habit is strategic scarcity. Limit your availability not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. Scarcity creates meaning. When you stop being omnipresent, your presence becomes valuable. You're teaching her nervous system to anticipate you. That anticipation builds emotional tension, the very essence of desire. It's what Bernays used in advertising. Controlled exposure. Show enough to stay relevant, but never enough to be predictable. Let her mind work to fill in the blanks. The less she knows, the more she imagines. And imagination is the language of attraction. Third, cultivate controlled detachment. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means freedom from outcome. You can enjoy the connection without needing to possess it. The paradox of attraction is that the more you need something, the less attractive you become. Sun Tzu would call this winning without fighting. You win by refusing to struggle for validation. You let her chase the emotional certainty that your composure represents. That's not arrogance. It's emotional discipline. I often tell my students, practice the art of the pause. Before replying to a message, pause. Before explaining yourself, pause. Before reacting to her mood, pause. This micro moment is your weapon. It interrupts your old emotional pattern and gives you power over time. Power isn't in words or looks, it's in timing. The one who controls timing controls perception. When you learn to delay reaction, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability, as every strategist knows, commands fascination. Now let's make this practical. Each morning I start my day with silence. No phone, no notifications. Just 10 minutes of observation. My breathing, my thoughts, my impulses. That's my battlefield, because the real war of attraction is not fought between people, but within yourself. Every thought you control sharpens your presence. Every reaction you resist amplifies your energy. When you walk into a room after mastering this practice, people will notice without knowing why. Your eyes become still. Your gestures deliberate. You no longer seek attention, you command it. The fourth habit, calibrated communication. Stop speaking to be understood. Start speaking to create emotion. Every word carries a frequency. Confidence, warmth, mystery. When you talk less, your words gain weight. When you look into her eyes, hold that silence a heartbeat longer than usual. That extra second creates a spike of uncertainty. Her mind registers tension. Her body interprets it as chemistry. That's not magic. It's neuropsychology. Ekman and Kahneman both proved that uncertainty activates emotional arousal. You can use that ethically, to spark interest, to lead interaction, to create depth. At this point in the video, I want to remind you of something important. If what I've said so far resonates with you, if you're beginning to see attraction not as luck, but as design, then subscribe to Invisible Power, because this isn't just a channel and it's a discipline. Here we don't chase validation, we study influence. We don't memorize lines. We master energy. Each video is a piece of psychological weaponry meant to help you conquer not women, but yourself. Because the man who conquers himself becomes irresistible to others. Now let's continue. The fifth habit, presence through absence. Learn to disappear strategically. When you withdraw, don't announce it. Simply become less reachable, less predictable. Fill your time with purpose. Not waiting, but building. Go to the gym, read, travel, learn. Your absence must carry the scent of progress. Because when she feels your absence but sees your evolution, the mind associates distance with growth. That duality, missing you while admiring you, creates emotional dissonance. And emotional dissonance is the foundation of obsession. It's the psychological gap that her mind will try to close by coming closer to you. Another critical element is emotional mirroring. Most men mirror words. Powerful men mirror emotions. When she's excited, you lower your tone slightly, anchoring her energy. When she's distant, you become calm, grounded, unreactive. You reflect her emotions back with control, not imitation. This balance between empathy and detachment creates a feeling of safety, a paradox that triggers trust and attraction simultaneously. It's what Huxley called the dance of opposites, where contradiction itself becomes beauty. Let me share another transformation story. A client of mine once told me, "Melkor, every woman loses interest after a few weeks." When I observed his communication, I noticed a pattern: overexposure. He was emotionally naked from day one. No pacing, no restraint. He thought vulnerability was connection. It wasn't. It was oversharing. I taught him to reveal less, to replace confessions with curiosity. Instead of saying, "I like you so much," he learned to say, "You're interesting and I can't quite read you yet." The result? Within weeks, women who once ignored him began chasing his attention. Why? Because curiosity replaced certainty, and curiosity is the oxygen of attraction. To master these habits, you must train your emotional muscles daily. That means enduring silence, resisting validation, controlling impulses, and embracing solitude. Loneliness is not a punishment. It's your forge. Every moment alone is an opportunity to sharpen your energy. Zimbardo proved that environment shapes behavior, and you are your own environment. Design it with discipline. Fill your surroundings with calm, order, and focus. That's how you cultivate the aura of authority that women feel before you even speak. Remember, women don't fall in love with your potential. They fall in love with how they feel in your presence. So your mission isn't to chase love. It's to become the man whose presence creates it. That's the ultimate transformation of dark psychology. Using the understanding of influence, not to manipulate others, but to master yourself. By now you should see that the art of attraction is not a series of tactics. It's a mindset, a code, a way of existing in which you stop reacting and start designing the energy around you. When you embody this, you no longer compete for attention. You attract it naturally. Because women don't crave perfection, they crave depth. They crave the man who sees the world differently. The man who can disappear for days and still linger in her thoughts. The man whose silence speaks louder than words. Everything I've shared with you until now leads to one undeniable truth. Attraction is not about her. It's about you. It's not about what she feels, but about what you evoke. You don't create desire by forcing it, by proving your worth, or by trying to convince anyone to see your value. You create it by embodying a version of yourself that naturally generates emotion. Because emotion is the true language of the subconscious, and whoever speaks it fluently commands the unseen. When you stop chasing and start leading your energy, you become something rare. You become the man who cannot be replaced. Because while others compete for attention, you command presence. While they speak louder, you move slower. While they explain themselves, you let silence explain for you. In a world obsessed with noise, the man who radiates quiet certainty becomes unforgettable. The more I studied attraction through the lenses of psychology and power, the clearer it became the game is not external, it's internal. Cialdini called it the law of consistency. The human mind craves coherence. When your words, your tone, and your energy align, people feel truth. When they don't, they feel manipulation. That's why fake confidence never works, because energy doesn't lie. You can't fake calmness. You must earn it through repetition, control, and self-awareness. But here's a paradox few understand. True power in relationships comes from vulnerability, not the emotional kind you pour out in desperation, but the controlled vulnerability that says, "I could open up, but I choose not to yet." That kind of restraint creates anticipation. It invites her curiosity, not her pity. Women are drawn to men who can feel deeply, but don't collapse under their emotions. Those who can hold both tenderness and strength in the same breath. Because that contrast, empathy and control, mirrors the duality of the feminine psyche itself. Robert Greene once wrote, "The essence of seduction is making someone feel seen and safe, yet slightly uncertain. That uncertainty is what keeps her imagination alive. Once she fully understands you, the game is over. So never be fully understood. Let her decode you piece by piece. Give her moments of intimacy, followed by mystery. Share glimpses, not the full story. Humans crave patterns, but desire lives in disruption." Now you might ask, Melkor, isn't that manipulation? No, manipulation seeks control over others. Mastery seeks control over self. The difference is intent. When you use these principles to awaken connection, to refine your presence, to elevate your awareness, you're not deceiving, you're directing. You're aligning your actions with universal psychological laws, the same laws that govern influence, leadership, and charisma. Every great communicator, from Carnegie to Bernays, understood this. People don't follow logic, they follow energy. And the one who controls energy controls perception. Let's talk about the void, that psychological space every person carries inside. It's the emptiness that makes us crave attention, affection, recognition. Most people try to fill that void with others. But the secret is this. Once you learn to sit inside your own void without panic, you become magnetic. Because peace is rare, and rarity breeds value. When a woman senses that you don't need her to feel complete, she relaxes, she feels safe. And paradoxically, that's when she starts to chase. Because now, being with you feels like a choice, not a responsibility. Philip Zimbardo proved that behavior changes depending on environment. The same rule applies here. When you create an inner environment of control, everyone entering your space unconsciously aligns with it. Your calmness reprograms her emotions. Your silence challenges her ego. Your discipline awakens her curiosity. She begins to feel emotions she cannot name, and the human brain always labels confusion as attraction. That's why detachment, when mastered, doesn't push people away. It draws them in. Here's a mental challenge for you. Think of the last time you chased someone's attention. The anxiety, the overthinking, the need to prove something. Now imagine that same scenario. But this time you don't chase. You observe. You move slower. You respond with calm clarity instead of emotional impulse. How does that version of you feel? Powerful, right? That's because you've shifted from reaction to creation. And creation is the essence of masculine energy. In my work, I've seen this transformation countless times. Men who were once invisible becoming magnetic. Not because they changed their looks, but because they rewired their energy. They became aware of their tone, their posture, their silence. They stopped competing and started embodying. One of them told me, "Melkor, for the first time, women look at me differently, like they can feel something but don't know why." That's when I smiled. Because that's the moment you become unforgettable, when you awaken emotion that logic can't explain. Remember this, attraction isn't about being better than other men. It's about being different. And difference is created through discipline. When you live with purpose, when you walk with certainty, when you detach from outcome, you become rare. And rarity, as every great manipulator and strategist knew, is irresistible. Even Machiavelli wrote that it's not the act of being loved that creates power, but the act of being needed. And the only way to be needed is to create emotion. Others can't find anywhere else. So what kind of man are you becoming? The one who reacts, or the one who designs? The one who seeks attention, or the one who commands it? Because if you've made it this far, you already know, attraction is not a chase. It's an energy field. You don't run after it, you become it. Now here's the final challenge I'll leave you with. For the next 7 days, speak less than usual. Move slower. Answer later. Observe more. Watch how people adjust around you. Watch how women lean in, trying to decode your stillness. You'll see how silence becomes your loudest weapon, how control becomes your charisma, and how absence becomes your signature. Because the most powerful presence is the one that doesn't need to prove it exists. So before you leave, remember, this is invisible power, and the power that cannot be seen cannot be resisted.